Damaso. Hi Lisa, thank you for the reminders. I practice the Osho chakra breathing as you suggested, though I have an issue about Osho as a guru or realized character of the story. I recently saw Wild Wild Country and was shocked by the story of this recognized spiritual leader. Thousands of people went to the community he made in the US, many of them giving up their earnings for this purpose, after which he didn't appear in 3 years. He bought 100 Rolls Royces. He armed the community with sophisticated weapons in the name of peace. I'm sorry. I can understand how this must be shocking for people. And self-defense, just as the atomic power leaders of the world, he tried to run away from justice. He, in his jet with his throne, Sheila, his secretary, says that when they needed the money, he enlightened some followers. He judged scornfully Krishnamurti's teaching and manifested he had never enlightened anybody. I understand what I see may be my own arrogance, and that what you say about gurus not farting rainbows, and when they take the roots out of this dream, the plant will still go on its own for a while. But still, can you give a tip on how to integrate Osho as reference to realization? I love it how questions always reflect what I've been speaking about, or like a topic that comes up. So I think this is a great question. So firstly, I don't believe what you watch on TV. That was a documentary in which was dramatized and told from a particular angle. Like, it's the same with the news, it's the same with everything. Like, and even if you think you have evidence, like you see a cut video of of someone screaming or shouting or doing something, it's all out of context. It's normally. I learned this when I was a lot younger. I worked in the West Bank for a period, and I witnessed something with my own eyes, and then I saw two sides told. I saw it told from the Israeli side, and then I saw it told from the Palestinian side, and both were drastically different to what actually happened. And then you read it in the newspaper, so I saw it in the news of each side, and then they're both the people like like you can tell stories in so many ways from so many different perspectives. But notice that Sheila always says that he's her guru, even in all that chaos and everything he did. And it was absolutely revolutionary what Osho did. Revolutionary. Like, I don't think there's been anything that's been done since. And it terrified America, it terrified India, that he could do something like that. It was really, like we can't imagine it because we live in such a liberal society. Well, it's not that liberal, but quite a liberal society compared to what it was. So we can't imagine, like, you know, I think it was the 80s he did that, the beginning of the 80s. And, you know, life was so different back then. Like sexuality or money, wealth, like everything was so different the way we look at it now as to when we looked at it then. So I wouldn't judge it too much from that perspective, but I do agree that my God as a teacher, like, I mean, all of that's speculation, but my God as a teacher, did he like create fire and chaos? And I think it's something that I just felt today that like there was some resolution coming in me with my guru or teachers. So I had teachers along the way, and it's not like you think. If you have a guru, you'll understand, or a teacher, you'll understand. It's not like you think it is. Like when you're on the opposite side of it and you're reading books about the guru, or you're reading about enlightened people and teachers, you have this romantic view. Like if you read some of the like people talking about Ramana Maharshi, it's so romantic and dramatized in a way, and it skips out the reality of it. That the reality of it when you have a teacher is you have two people's dynamics meeting each other, and then one person that is more liberated in specific areas, which is teaching the other person, but you're still meeting with two dynamics. We get into our head that teachers don't have dynamics, or that teachers don't have personalities, because it suits us, because it's too complex for our brains to think of them having personalities. They have to be like this pure Buddha that's sitting in silence, that's totally empty with no dynamics, because humans are so contradictory and difficult and conflicting in so many ways, and relationships are complex. So we idolize that teacher, and we have this image that the teacher's going to be perfect without any dynamics. And then when you go as a student, you inevitably become disappointed, because that teacher will have viewpoints, it will have personality, it will have wants and needs and ways of being, and it will have conditioning. Like if we went to a teacher 100 years ago, that teacher's conditioning would more than likely be sexist. Us women would be at the back or not allowed in, and all the men would get the preferential treatment. It could be that that teacher doesn't hold up to that, but more than likely it would. Maybe 200 years ago, we wouldn't even get a look in, us women. And most, yeah, like and if you think that's not the case, then you're naive, and you have a naive image of what a teacher is like and we like to imagine that a teacher is like this God, this perfect God, or this perfect parent. And then when you come in contact with them, you get ultimately disillusioned, because you meet their humanness, and that's incredibly challenging. And then at the same time they're teaching you, and that's also incredibly challenging. And it can bring up all types of dynamics. And they're breaking down every concept you have. They're breaking down this idea of good and bad, that having 100 Rolls Royces is a bad thing. I mean, that's, out of all the things he did, that to me is like the least offensive. And the armed community, we don't understand what that was like. Like, we can sit and we can judge from this side. And I'm not making excuses for him. I like Osho, but I also see that he was also crazy to an extent. But so am I, so like likes like. Like attracts like. So I can relate. I think you have to be crazy to get into this subject. But you can't understand what it was like to be living in that community where all the people around them hated them, and and to live outside a society like then. I don't, like with the weapons, I'm not a fan of weapons, but also, we can't imagine what that was like in 1980. I mean, that was really radical what they did. When he needed money, he enlightened people. But at the same time, like if you look back in the traditions, this is what gurus did. It's like they played with people, a bit like a cat with a mouse. And that shook up dynamics and made people think outside of themselves, because that's also such a great lesson for that person to be promoted and then be depromoted. What's that word? Forgot. So it is all projections of mind, like good and bad. I really don't have, I watched it and I really enjoyed Wild Wild Country. I thought it was a great drama, but it didn't give me any worse or better opinion of Osho. It's really complex when you set up massive organizations like that. And also I know what it's like from the teacher's perspective now. I am so completely imperfect. I get things wrong. I lose my temper with people sometimes. I do the wrong things. I'm inappropriate. And all of that, and I know that, and I know that from the student's perspective, if I confront them on their dynamic, normally what they do is they straight away attack my personhood. But you got angry when you did this, and you did that, and you did this, and I can see where they're getting stuck. But it's like when they're in attack mode and when they're in defense mode, and they're going at your personality and all the things that you've done wrong and all the ways you're inappropriate. There's not much you can do. And I can understand why teachers tend to paint themselves as absolutely having no dynamic, because it's so hard teaching people or pointing out people's dynamics. They become so sensitive. I know with my teacher, I used to have so much hatred and anger towards them. And the end of the day, and this is really like integrating into my human being at the moment, this subject, because at the end of the day, there is no teacher. There is only life, and life is your teacher. And so in my mind, like sometimes I have like contradictory thoughts about the teachers that I had, because I mean, if you know Ramesh's history or Osho's history or other teachers that I had close relationships with, it's always like that. There's always this relationship that forms, and in that relationship there will be disappointments, and there'll be rejection, there'll be arguments, there'll be disharmony. And coming to this place where you see that I can respect them on the human level and say, yes, they were my teacher, but then on the ultimate level I see that there is no teacher. Because how do you excuse people for some of these actions? And the only way you can do it is seeing it by life is your teacher. And if you come in contact with a crazy ass teacher like Osho or like myself, or like many of the teachers out there, you have to see that life is speaking through them, just like life is speaking through you. And when the student is ready, the student will see that everything is a teaching. It's not just this teacher that's this God that sat above me. It's seeing that everything that they come in contact with and everything that they're drawn towards is their teacher. And then it's also still having respect for somebody that teaches you something and somebody that speaks to you about this subject, but also not personifying it too much. And I can tell you it's really tough. So, I've had teachers and it's like 10, 15 years on, and still I try and digest some of the really complex things that they did, where they're like really beautiful and then kick you in the stomach, and then really beautiful and hit you in the stomach. It's not an easy relationship. And if you look at the sutras and if you look at books with teachers and students, this is often how it is. And you have to, like, one of the most beautiful things that one of my teachers taught me was just how see-through you have to become with judgments. That we can have judgments about life, but in the end, none of them hold true. All of it is a mystery as to why any of this is appearing or happening. And we don't know at the end of the day what's right or wrong. Like with Osho, you believe that he did it, that he got the people to get the weapons and got all these things, and tried to run away from justice and blame it on Sheila. But if you really meditate on it and see that life was acting through him, then whose actions is it? It comes to that story of whose ever name I can't remember, Aruna or something, when he was going to war, and he says, please God, don't make me go to war. They're my friend against my friends and family. And God replies, you're not going to war, I am going to war. You'll get to realize in this subject it's holding everything in that total contradiction. And Osho did some brilliant things. It's like everything, brilliant and shitty. Dong, 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 the scales of life. Hey, Thomas. But you can also just totally disregard him and not like him and not do the meditations if you want to. I don't mind. I've not got money on Osho here. Like, I'm not like, woohoo, Osho, boo, 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 boo. You gotta like him. I've not got investments in that.